Should someone be fired for making pro-Hitler comments or doing a Nazi salute? This week we saw two separate incidents in two totally different industries and with different results. First, let's start with the UFC. MMA fighter Bryce Mitchell is under fire for praising Hitler and going on an anti-trans, anti-Semitic, homophobic, etc., everything you could think of type of rant on the very first episode of his podcast, ArkanSanity. While talking about Elon Musk's salute at the inauguration, here's what Mitchell said.
Here's what I say about him hailing Hitler, hailing the Nazis. I really don't think that he was, because I honestly think that Hitler was a good guy based upon my own research, not my public education indoctrination. I really do think before Hitler got on meth, he was a guy I'd go fishing with. He fought for his country. He wanted to purify it by kicking the greedy Jews out that were destroying his country and turning them all into gays. They were gaying out the kids. They were queering out the women. They were queering out the dudes. They were, you know what her first surgery ever was? Happened to be in Germany before Hitler took over. You know the books that everybody makes fun of Hitler burning? You know what the books was? Queer books. Hitler burned queer books because Hitler didn't want a bunch of queers destroying his nation. They can't produce children. Was Hitler perfect? No, but he was fighting for his people, okay? And he wanted a pure nation.
In response, UFC CEO Dana White said, "We reached out to Bryce immediately when we read what he said and let him know exactly how we felt about it. But what he said was beyond disgusting, and he needs a real education on the facts surrounding Hitler and World War II. Hitler is one of the most disgusting and evil human beings to ever walk the earth, and anyone that even tries to take an opposing position is a moron." But despite his condemnation, he said he will not be punishing Mitchell, citing free speech. I don't have to love it, and you don't have to love it. That's the beautiful thing about this business. For all of you who hate Bryce Mitchell, you get to see him hopefully get his ass whooped on global television. Now, Cenk, before we get into the other end of the spectrum, do you think Bryce Mitchell should be fired here?
Yeah, I don't. This is a super rare one where I'm not sure. And we got a poll in the live chat about it. Curious what you guys have to say. I'm not sure, not because his comments were a close case. They're not a close case. I mean, they're both like terrible, like the worst things you've ever heard, and kind of comical at the same time. I mean, like he's like, was Hitler perfect? No. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, how generous of you to.
Yeah, that's part of his research.
Yeah, he did his own research. This is not public education. Best ad you could do for public education. Okay, so I bet he'd be good to go fishing with before the meth. Okay, well, after the meth, everybody's problematic on fishing. And then, although my favorite was, no, the Jews were making everybody queer in Germany. And yeah, that's what they're prone to do. And apparently the queers came out of Germany right before World War II. The Romans and the Greeks would like a word. Okay, so anyway, so obviously none of us agree with that. It's all heinous, horrible stuff. And actually, I'm kidding aside because he's such a knucklehead, but it's. Now we got a lot of folks doing things that look like salutes, things that sound like, the Jews will not replace us, the immigrants will not replace us, and you got the Fuentes out there, you got Kanye West, now you got this guy sprouting, and I'm worried that this stuff's gonna catch on, okay? So deeply worried about it. So that isn't the question. The question is, how do you best combat it? And so what we've done in the past is fire them, don't get them out of the public sphere, don't let them say stuff like that. And we're at a point where I'm worried that has not worked and that it has made it worse. And so maybe the answer is, yeah, let him fight and let him get, and then let him say the stupid things he does, and we all make fun of him and show how wrong he is, right? And so there's an Israeli MMA fighter that we kind of support on the show. He did this awesome video where some guy walked in off the street. It was a Nick Fuentes supporter. It was like a huge guy. And then they did a fight. I'm sorry, I forgot his name right now, but and he kicked his ass, and it was kind of really gratifying. Okay, so maybe you put the Israeli MMA fighter against this knucklehead, and then, but the thing is, Dana White's a good business guy. Everybody gonna watch that, right? But I don't want to get spreading. So I'm kind of stuck on what do you do with a guy this over the line, right? And he's not around the edges. He's way past the line. So Waz, what do you think?
In terms of the firing, I just don't see what the utility of firing a UFC fighter would be. I think folks need to realize if you don't watch UFC, just understand that this is essentially legalized human cockfighting, basically, what you get in the UFC. So the people who are into this sport, who have the stomach to be entertained by it, I just find it hard to believe that those same people are gonna be like, oh, this guy's a Nazi sympathizer and thinks Hitler was a decent dude, are gonna be like, I can't possibly watch the UFC. I just don't see what the utility of firing this dude would be. And then I do think it's important that people hear this guy's views, and that he gets publicly ridiculed, and people can publicly disagree with him and show the facts of the matter that no, Hitler wasn't a decent guy. In fact, he was a monster. And I think that's how this should go. And obviously, Dana White is always going to be thinking about the bottom line. So, firing a guy who has this much heat around his name would be the antithesis of good business as far as Dana White is concerned. So no, I actually don't think this guy should be, stopped from doing his barbaric job in the first place. If he was a history teacher, I'd be like, yeah, probably shouldn't be teaching the kids, world history. As a UFC fighter, I don't know. I think this is completely fine for that crowd.
I want to pick up on something Waz said here. I think the way we should look at this is, especially within the context of White's comments about this being around free speech. Oh, we're not going to punish him because of free speech. It's deplorable, we condemn it, but that's just how he's going to approach it. Personally, I think, yeah, you should fire somebody who says something that heinous. But to Cenk's point, would that change anything? Would that only fan the flames if people were upset? Would there be backlash? I don't know. I don't think we have as a society figured out how to extinguish this kind of hate, unfortunately. But Dana White saying, "Oh, this is free speech." Well, he's punished fighters in the past for missing weight, for having behavioral issues inside the ring, outside, substance abuse issues. He's fired people before, but on the issue of free speech, in 2015, the UFC fired Jacob Stitch Duran for publicly criticizing the UFC's sponsorship deal with Reebok. Or did he didn't have free speech because it affected his personal sponsorships. So
good point.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, just saying blanket free speech is BS. Jordan's absolutely right about that. The minute you touch a sponsor, all of a sudden free speech finds the exit real quick, right? So now, and more good points from Jordan. That's why I'm kind of stuck on this, because if he worked at GE or IBM or just a regular old company and you go around telling everybody how good Hitler was, you're a goner, you're gonna get fired. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. And part of the reason you're gonna get fired is because there might be Jewish folks who work there, LGBTQ folks, Polish folks, on and on and on. All the people that he slaughtered, kind of awkward when you say like, hey, I would love to go fishing with the guy who killed all your family members. So that's another good reason to get fired in that. But at UFC, I don't know. I don't know what the work dynamic there is, but it's so public that for me it creates a different scenario than just working internally at a company. And then finally, in all my indecisions on this issue, so this one's so over the line that it's kind of easy. But where's the line, and who gets to decide what the line is? So for example, like in the old days when folks would get fired for this immediately, the old days as in 2 months ago, okay, right? So that would be an easier thing. But okay, how about a guy who goes to work and says, kill all the Muslims? Oh, right, that's our defense secretary, right? Pete Hegseth said that. And so that apparently is nowhere near the line. because he got confirmed by the Senate of the United States of America. And so, I mean, let's be honest. And I'm not trying to get into a victim race here, but you really can say anything you want about Muslims. And these days, unfortunately, you can say almost anything you want about trans people, right? So that is, but if you say things about, so that's why I don't know where the line is. Is it based on religion? Is it based on ethnicity? Is it based on something else? And who gets to decide where it is? That's why I generally very much lean in the direction of let them all talk. We'll defeat them with our ideas, etc. But there is a line where, if somebody said that here, I'd fire them. So that's why I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. So Waz, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for me, man, especially watching that clip, that dude with his southern drawl and like basically a caricature of every white southerner that has ever existed in his camo gear, and just saying the most obviously ignorant, ridiculous things that could possibly be spouted. Again, I think that I don't see any problem with this guy getting to go on doing what he's doing. If fans decide they don't want to watch this dude fight, they don't want to pay for pay-per-views or watch it on ESPN or any of other the UFC's other broadcasting partners, then fans will do that on their own. I just think the idea that this guy gets fired, that it's at all would be combating anti-Semitism when all he would ever do, first of all, he'd go on the freaking conservative martyrdom tour and he'd talk about how Dana White isn't even Jewish and he fired me because the Jews are so powerful and blah, blah, blah. We see that happen every single time. And so I don't see why we should give this guy that option instead of just allowing him to sound like the buffoon and, very hateful person that he so obviously is.
Yeah, so I got a little bit of the poll results and then I thought of something else that makes it even more complicated. So right now, should Bryce Mitchell be removed from the UFC? Yes is at 59%, no is at 41%. So yes is definitely winning, but it's a little bit close there. But here's another problem was, I wanna be on your side, right? But if he really does fight the Israeli MMA fighter, which is just my idea, nobody's actually saying that, everybody would watch, and then that would be a huge payday for Bryce Mitchell. And then what that creates is an incentive to say crazy stuff so that you get a big match that everybody wants to watch and you get paid. So now that's a giant problem because this is not IBM, this is a public facing thing. So I don't know how to solve this one. We all agree that what he said is way out of bounds, terrible, etc. But you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And so we're in a super tough situation here, in my opinion.
Yeah, but there's another incident we want to talk about. A speaker at the National Pro-Life Summit in Washington, DC this week sparked outrage when he mimicked Elon Musk's salute as he concluded his remarks. Take a look.
This I see as the last stand for the West. This is the last stand for Christendom. It's make or break time. The whole of the old world is crumbling. Every country in Europe is embracing death. America, as far as I could see, is the only country fighting for life. And that's down to you guys. So God bless all of you for what you're doing. Please keep doing it. I hope that I can encourage you. And my heart goes out to you. God bless.
Now, he posted that clip on X with the caption, "My heart goes out to you all, make America pro-life again." And later that day, the Anglican Catholic Church revoked his license. In a statement, the church said, "While we cannot say what was in Mr. Robinson's heart when he did this, his action appears to have been an attempt to curry favor with certain elements of the American political right by provoking its opposition. Mr. Robinson has been warned that online trolling and other such actions, whether in service of the left or right, are incompatible with a priestly vocation and was told to desist. Clearly, he has not, and as such, his license in this church has been revoked. He is no longer serving as a priest in the ACC." But Robinson's woes didn't end there. Video game site God is a Greek, which is owned by Robinson, saw its entire editorial team resign in protest. The entire editorial team will be stepping down with immediate effect. We will create a new site, and our future content will be published there, bereft of any connection to Calvin Robinson. It'll be hard to start again, hard to walk away from the work we've done here from our own backs, but this is the right thing to do. We cannot apologize on behalf of Calvin and will not. Our severance should stand as proof that we do not support or condone his actions, politics, or beliefs. Now, Cenk, should Calvin Robinson have been fired?
Yeah, I think that one's easier, actually. I think he should be fired. He's supposed to be a man of the cloth. He's supposed to be a moral leader. And when you got moral leaders unrepentantly doing Nazi salutes, that is a massive problem. I wouldn't stand for it if I was in that church and I was in that leadership. See, every situation is a little bit different, right? And so one of our viewers, Rage Rock for Now, wrote in on Super Chat. Seems like this Hitler Nazi praising crap has already caught on, and that's when Elon did the salute. My position was hated by both sides, which was that to me that was clearly a Nazi salute, but I think that he was doing it for trolling. And because he's just absolutely addicted to attention. And by the way, we saw another example of that today where we found out that he was having some professionals play video games for him and pretending to be great at these video games because he's dying for attention. But the problem that our viewer points out is that once you start the salutes, then more and more of them come, right? So the folks who thought Elon was genuinely saying from my heart and wasn't trolling or didn't mean it, I mean, that brother meant it, right? That there's no question that pastor meant it. So if you say he didn't mean it, ooh, then I'm worried about you. And so this is not fun. It's not funny. So to me, that one's clear. Waz, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty clear distinction here when it comes to the expectations in terms of, personal character and morality between a guy who fights in an octagon and a man who professes to be an emissary or, from God. Like he's literally, God's word is literally supposed to be speaking through this guy. And he's making light of a mass genocide. That's just absurd to me. And the craziest part about this, again, to reiterate, like this guy is at a quote unquote pro-life conference and rally where like this allegedly care about saving the babies and lives and all of this stuff that these guys claim to care about, while also invoking, again, a mass genocide on a scale that we have never even known. In terms of the Holocaust and the Nazis. This is just obviously a disqualifying behavior in terms of being a freaking priest in the Catholic Church. It goes against every single thing, as somebody myself who was raised Catholic, that you've ever been taught or known about Catholicism and Christianity more broadly. You're absolutely in opposition to anything related to a mass genocide of a people for their religious beliefs, for the people that they come from, who they are, not what they've done. It's just nuts. It's just obvious this guy needed to be finished.
Yeah. By the way, one of our producers found the person I was referring to. Thank you for reminding me. It's Natan Levy, and he actually had a tweet about this. He said, "I ain't scared of no one, and I know Bryce isn't either. I've been asking for a fight for a long time, so I'm down. I'm all for fighting with sportsmanship, but willing to do it against haters too. I also offered to take Bryce to the Holocaust Museum to educate him, or even to." Lost the last part of it. Or even to Israel to show him a beautiful land with people just like him. We don't have horns. We don't all conspire to take over the world. We just trying to live our lives and enjoy the sun. So that's an Israeli MMA fighter that I was referring to earlier. So I'm, again, super conflicted about the MMA guy, Bryce Mitchell. I love that you guys participated in the poll. That's why I love when you guys watch live, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern every day. On the priest, I think it sounds like we're all united. You can't have that. So that one's clear. But most of all, cut the crap out. It isn't interesting, it isn't fun, it isn't funny, it isn't helpful, it's terrible, it's disgusting. And if you think you know better than the entire education system because you read something on Facebook, well, I mean, that dude is so ignorant, there's nothing that could help him.
I think that's relevant in both situations here though, because if you look at that statement from the church, they talk about his social media behavior and his trolling as having been an ongoing issue. And I can't imagine that he went into that profession. He didn't go into the clergy to be a troll, to seek attention. That's not something, I would imagine when he started and when he made that decision, and that's how he was going to live his life, it wasn't for self-aggrandizement. It was his faith, and it was for his love of who he sees as God. And with the comments on trolling in that statement, and his actions here, I think it's just another instance of the internet and just consuming all of this culture, frying his brain. And look, he's lost it all. He lost his website that he had. He lost his license. He was defrocked. I mean, the internet is frying people's brains. Well, it's okay to just log off. I mean, we all need it. We all need the advice. Maybe this guy a little bit more than most, but.
Okay, by the way, super last thing on this. So this knucklehead, Bryce Mitchell, is the one who's questioning whether the Holocaust even happened, right? I was super privileged to take a international law crime class at Columbia when I went there with Teffer Taylor, who is one of the Nuremberg prosecutors. And so I got to hear from the actual person who prosecuted the Nazis about the evidence. Okay, and the evidence is overwhelming. 6 million Jews killed, 13 to 17 million people killed overall, including tons of Poles, Roma, LGBTQ folks, etc. So there really isn't anyone as bad as Hitler, probably in the history of the world. And so this revisionist history is maddening, and it's totally toxic, it's poison. Don't go in that direction. 1%, it's nothing but the worst kind of instincts. And not only is it terrible about revisionist history, but it also starts to pit all of us against one another. Don't bring back those demons. Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.